Okay, so our question is basically based off of assuming there are no investments in R&D, so assuming the technology we have now with all the inefficiencies, what will happen over the next 50 years with supplies of energy sources?
It's the year 2059. Oil runs scarce all over the world. The price of a gallon of gas is off the charts, and only the wealthiest can afford it. When you look out the window, you can barely see the house across the street because of the newly built coal plant nearby, trying desperately to keep up with energy demands.
The world population continues to rise at an exponential rate, as does the price of petroleum products. Simple commodities like water bottles, toothpaste, and plastic bags have turned into rare luxuries.
Electronic devices are a thing of the past. Plastic is valued in 2059 like gold was valued in 2009. Don't you wish you invested in research and development?
Most of the population is forced to live within 2 miles of their workplace because transportation has become so expensive. The top 1% of the population of the U.S. uses 90% of the energy.
Carbon dioxide emissions have taken their toll as gasoline runs low. Water moves up the coast, causing land to shrink and the population to grow even denser.
Okay, so that scenario was an exaggeration, but there's some truth to this prediction if there are no further investments in research and development.
By 2059, most charts predict that projected usage rates will be very low on, if not completely out of oil. By this time, the government will most likely be forced to add a petroleum tax in order to make products more expensive to discourage excessive use.
This will cause everyday objects to rise in price. In addition, less oil being burned means less energy being made. With a growing population, this energy demand will only increase. So there will be a scramble for other sources of energy to supply the ever-rising need.
With no further developments in R&D, coal will most likely be the option that makes most economic sense. This will lead to greater emissions and even greater risk in the form of possible global warming.
Renewable sources should increase, but at the current rates and with no research and development alone, they will not be able to cover the gap.
Okay, so statistically speaking, this is what we have to say. The biggest problems to face would be, first of all, global warming, because we'd be running really low on oil, and so we'd have to start relying more on coal to burn coal, and that emits CO2, which is really damaging to the atmosphere. And also, like, assuming no more research and development, right now our energy sources are the ones we're experimenting with aren't very efficient. So that would be a negative impact. Decrease in amount of oil, obviously. The decrease in amount of oil would lead to extreme increase in price of petroleum-based products, and population growth would affect everyone because more people means we need more energy, and we wouldn't have the ability, or we wouldn't have the wouldn't be able to, because our sources right now aren't very efficient. Okay. So in this chart, you can see in 1973, compared to 2006, oil was relied on more, which means that it's becoming less and less, which means that it's becoming more and more expensive. So in 2006, we relied on it less, which means in 2059, we won't be able to rely on it like hardly at all because we'll have used all of it and it'll be way too expensive to even afford. So the total projected energy usage difference between the year 2005 and 2030 is expected to increase by over 60%, and that's only to 2030. So imagine to 2059, it's going to be like way up there. And this chart just kind of shows what's being used. So many different potential energy sources, such as nuclear energy, are potential risks to the environment, and so, like also like that nuclear energy and coal, that would be like people right now are really skeptical about them because coal, for one thing, is dangerous. If we solely rely on it, it would be dangerous to the environment. And so the concept of NIMBYism, not in my backyard, has a way of preventing progress. People don't want, currently people aren't looking to change their way of acquiring energy. Also, the prices of crude oil, coal, natural gas, petroleum products would just skyrocket because this goes up to 2008 and they're already like off the charts. So by 2059, they would be just unreasonable, completely unrealistic. Another thing is population growth would have a severe effect because this chart predicts that by 2048 it'll be in the 9 billions region. So by 2059, somewhere around 10 or 9.5 billion. And this just means that we won't have the efficiency of our energy sources right now aren't good enough to support the population as it is. And so by 2059, it's just going to be much worse. So if the world continues at its current rate of energy usage, oil will be forced to be replaced by coal, which will fast forward global warming because of the CO2 emitted. We kind of already talked about that. CO2 will alter the atmosphere, and there's a lot of different damaging effects like skin cancer, ice caps start melting, they say, etc. William Yeatman said economists predict that an 80% increase in global energy demand will cause global greenhouse gas emissions to grow by 70% by mid-century. So it's not a very good thing. And those are the works that
As we've heard time and time again, the world as we know it faces peril. Many different awareness programs, such as those of recycling, have arisen since then. Each individual program has had a large impact on the declining trend of natural resource availability. What if nobody did anything at all to change our present lifestyle as it is? We currently rely heavily on non-renewable resources like petroleum, and at this rate, many scientists estimate petroleum depletion to occur within the next 30 to 50 years. No more petroleum means no more plastic, which makes recycling a vital part of conserving petroleum. Alternative energy? Without petroleum-based plastic, how could we build photovoltaic cells for solar energy, or even windmills for wind energy? If we don't do anything now, in the year 2009, what will the world look like 50 years from now? If we start then, it will be far too late. Coal would dominate the energy industry until its resources also run out, or worse, until its emissions pollute the atmosphere and either A, give us all lung cancer, or B, increase the risk factor in the form of global warming. Of course, that's just us being a little pessimistic so we can answer the prompt. After all, aren't we all here studying the frontiers of energy resources?
Question. From the judge.
Yes. You talk about oil. What about natural gas? What was your perception about what will happen to that? Natural gas together.
What I know that is a little bit more readily available than oil. so it should be able to help cover the gap caused by loss in oil. But
The only problem is currently we rely heavily on petroleum not only for fuel and energy, but also, like we said, for all the different products that you can even just see on the table or the computer screen, the computer itself. So the issue being that petroleum is not only used as energy, but it's also used for many different other materials. So by the time petroleum runs out, then you're relying exponentially more on natural gas and coal. So soon enough, those non-renewable resources will also face depletion.
Other questions?